The boys are finally back going where no superhero show dares to go.
That's a penis!
From the world's saddest handjob, the nation's next hottest video game, and the freshest of calamari, the first 3 episodes pack a ton of cool Easter eggs and clues for what's going to happen next. So follow me down to Brave May's Inclusive Kingdom and make sure to put your preferred pronouns in the comments section because here we go. The Dawn of the Seven movie has finally released after extensive rewrites were required after it was revealed Stormfront was an actual Nazi. You may remember her filming alongside other members of the Seven last season, but Vought has come a long way since its founder Frederick Vought, a literal Nazi who experimented on Jews in World War II, founded a company which now preaches inclusivity. Don't forget your BLM BLTs. Thus, reshoots were required with Charlize Theron taking on the Nazi bitch role. You'll remember at the end of Season 2, Stormfront was burnt to a crisp by Homelander and Becca's son, Ryan, where it's later revealed she's currently recovering in Homelander's apartment. Even with all the backlash against her, she still has a group of loyal followers called the Storm Chasers. We'll see them carrying around tiki torches just like real-life white supremacists did in Charlottesville back in 2017. This whole opening segment is a spoof on Zack Snyder's Justice League, with the movie even getting its own #ReleaseTheBork cut, which will hopefully drop on Vought Plus. You can watch the trailer for the movie as well as an ad for Vought Plus on the Vought International YouTube channel, which has exclusive content including several segments from America's favorite unbiased anchor, Cameron Coleman, a satire on Fox News anchors like Tucker Carlson and Sean Hannity.
I personally am sick and tired of the continued attacks by the leftist PC snowflakes. We'll do it live! Fuck!
Now you may have noticed there are only 5 members of the Seven here, with the Deep and Stormfront no longer a part. Even the production design highlights this, as the background paneling here in episode 2 only shows 5 of the 7 members. The 2 new members become a major plot point for Starlight in the first 3 episodes, where she holds a reality TV show called American Hero, in which 10 soups battle for the 2 open slots. One of the contestants being Supersonic, a former fling of Starlight's who she met during her Capes for Christ days. You might remember this guy, Ezekiel, headlining a Capes for Christ convention back in Season 1, and on the VNN channel we learn he's being investigated by the Federal Bureau of Superhero Affairs for, let's just say, not being very Christian. The FBSA is where we find Huey working at the beginning of episode 1. He's Congresswoman Victoria Newman's right-hand man in charge of investigating and holding soups accountable for their crimes, and since the Bureau's inception there's been a 60% decrease in collateral deaths involving soups. Remember that Huey's girlfriend from Season 1 was one such instance of a collateral death, with A-Train blasting right through her and facing almost 0 repercussions. We'll even get a slight nod to her in Mother Milk's investigation closet. This movie premiere is a triggering event for Homelander, who has to watch the love of his life exposed on the big screen, not to mention he's being outshone by Starlight. Homelander has been smeared in the media for his relationship with a Nazi, and he's been trained by Vought with specific talking points. He repeats these on multiple networks. This is just like in real life how giant media companies promote their message to the masses, and how we as a society can be easily manipulated by it.
The sharing of biased and
false news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets simply aren't true.
Meanwhile, Huey keeps tabs on a man named Tony, someone who says he is Victoria Newman's best friend, or as he calls her, Nadia. We'll later find out Tony and Victoria grew up in a sort of orphanage for soup kids known as Red River, and when he confronts her about it, saying they need to come forward about Red River, he ends up like a literal Red River. Here's where we can start getting into some theories. Red River was a joint operation between the government and Vought. That's probably how Stan Edgar gained access to young Nadia, a girl he calls, quote, very special, and ends up adopting. Stan has always struck me as a very calculating man, and I can't help but think there's something more here choosing Nadia as his daughter. In The Boys animated spin-off, Red River is shown in episode 2 as being a sort of orphanage for unwanted soups, which tracks here. But the comics imply Red River is a sort of independent military contractor, hence why its name is so close to Blackwater, a notorious real-life contractor involved in many instances of incompetence and use of excessive force. So maybe Red River is like a type of recruiting front for Vought, taking the most vulnerable vulnerable of Supes, those orphaned, under its wing. With Tony wanting to come forward with what was happening to them there, maybe various experiments or other nefarious things happened. At the end of episode 1, Huey watches as Victoria explodes Tony, then calling Stan Edgar to have the place cleaned up. This is probably what happened after the Church of the Collective's leader, Alistair Adana's head was popped off after enjoying a delicious fresca. Vought came in, cleaned the place up, and according to VNN News, no one has seen Adana since. A-Train's storyline these 3 episodes hasn't really picked up the pace, and yes, my puns are terrible. He's struggling with his own identity after the one thing that made him who he was, his speed, can't really be used anymore for fear his heart will explode. While visiting the doctor in episode 3, he'll be told that if he uses his power, it'll be like Russian roulette whether he'll die or not. This is why we've seen him try to pivot to different careers, like a rapper in his own music video, or even rebranding his image. With the introduction of his brother this season, it looks like A-Train will have to decide on leaving the Seven and his life as a superhero for one more down-to-earth and family-oriented. They also introduced this new Supe called Blue Hawk, who apparently has been hunting down innocent black men. On VNN, we learned he has his own cop-style reality show. I wonder if we'll see A-Train turn away from the glitz and glamour of the Seven to helping his community. Bork rips out Ashley's hair while doing the Freak Nasty at the Dawn premiere. Just another instance in which Ashley's hair has fallen out throughout the series. And I gotta say, I love how Ashley's new assistant is actually called Also Ashley in the credits. Butcher, Frenchie, and Kimiko are the only remaining members of the Boys, working in tandem with Huey at the FBSA to bring down corrupt Supes. One such corrupt superhero is Termite, an actor who starred in the beloved rom-com Pocket Romance. Not only is this a great reintroduction to the Boys, but it also sets up the corruption between Vought and the government, with Huey becoming disillusioned when Termite goes free due to a deal that was made between Vought and the FBSA. We'll see Huey go from believing he's actually making a difference by doing things the right way to later telling Butcher they can never win that way.
I thought we could fight Vought the right way, but we can't. It's all rigged. If we're gonna take them down, we have to do whatever it takes.
If this is part of his character arc this season, just watch it bite him in the ass, and it may even end up with him losing Starlight. The deep connection between Vought and the government is showcased between Vought President Stan Edgar and US presidential hopeful Robert Singer. We've seen him in the past seasons when he was Secretary of Defense. Stan tells him of this new Compound V that only lasts 24 hours. If and when it is fully perfected, it should be a win-win for both parties. The government won't have to deal with the lingering effects of lifetime superheroes, their powers would only last 24 hours, and Vought could sell this compound at $2 million a pop over and over again. Stan also believes that when Vought turned the super into a hero, something to be worshipped, it ruined them, and he lets it slide that he hopes to retire in 5 years. I wouldn't really count on that. Maeve will somehow get her hands on 3 of these 24-hour Compound V vials and gives them to Butcher. He's the perfect character to take this drug as he'll literally turn into the thing he hates more than anything, Supes. If I were to make a guess, the writers will be going on an addiction arc with him. We've already seen how the drug has started to fracture relationships with people he loves, like Ryan. We've also seen the physical side effects. Kimiko is going through her own problems, dreaming of being able to sing and later telling Ryan that she thinks she's a monster. At Vaughtland, which is actually Canada's Wonderland just outside of Toronto, she sees a brother and sister experience the traumatic event of Crimson Countess exploding a Homelander mascot, and it reminds her of the trauma she and her brother experienced as kids, a brother who died at the hands of Stormfront last season. I wonder if they're setting Kimiko up to regain her voice, but in the process lose her power. I've heard there is a musical episode this season, so who knows. Speaking of music, I love how the end of episode 1 finished with Billy Joel playing in the background, a callback to Huey's Billy Joel dance parties he'd have with his mom when he was 6. I wonder if she'll make an appearance this season. Ryan is plagued by nightmares of his father, Homelander, but Butcher reassures him that someday he'll be strong enough where he can't hurt him. With all this talk of a special weapon, the one that supposedly killed Soldier Boy, being the thing that could kill Homelander, I really don't buy it. For one, we know from the previews that Soldier Boy is alive, so whether or not such a weapon exists is up in the air, And 2, I just think it would be narratively better if the power to kill Homelander came from his own son. Mother's Milk has his own journey which leads him back to the boys in these first 3 episodes. The guy has to watch his daughter host a superhero-themed party when he knows how corrupt all of them are. And what a great dad, getting his daughter what any girl would want, a Flava Flav clock. Adding salt to the wound is his ex-wife's current lover Todd, who wears a Homelander costume. We'll later see Todd brimming with excitement when Homelander gives his unhinged speech, one which ups his favorability with white males in the Rust Belt by 44%. These ratings are the bread and butter of Vought and dictate which direction the company goes. Starlight is made a co-captain of the Seven for her 96% rating, contrasted with Homelander's plummeting numbers. In the eyes of the public, she and Maeve were responsible for catching Stormfront, she has this wholesome image, and the people like her relationship with Huey a non-soup. Of course, when Homelander isn't the center of attention, it means trouble for, well, anyone but him. 2 things have been keeping Homelander in check: Stan Edgar and this damning footage of Homelander allowing the plane from season 1 to crash with dozens of civilians on board. When Starlight threatens to release this tape, Homelander says then he'll have nothing to lose, and if he has nothing to lose, then he'll basically destroy the world. That's how powerful this guy is, and adds stakes to why it's so important the boys find a way to stop him. Homelander here also refers to himself as the Homelander, his original name, which had the dropped years ago by Madeline Stillwell because it sounded better. This is all part of him taking control back for himself. Mother's Milk's arc is one of moving on. He needs to live his own life, but when he finds out the boys are hunting down Soldier Boy, the man who killed his family, he can't let it go. The Deep rises from record low approval ratings to one so high he's eventually brought back into the Seven. His message of being reformed is one that resonates with audiences. He even had time to star in a movie with Billy Zane called Not Without My Dolphin. Funny enough, this isn't Billy's first Vought feature. He starred with Popclaw in Terminal Beauty 3. As Homelander prepares for his annual televised birthday extravaganza, he learns about Stormfront's suicide. She doesn't wish him a happy birthday, and her realization that Homelander never really cared about this white master race, only himself, this is what pushes her over the edge. So if there is this weapon that could kill Homelander, the boys decide to look into Soldier Boy's team. A team called Payback. Maybe they know what really happened to Soldier Boy and this weapon which supposedly killed him. The mainstream narrative is that Soldier Boy was killed stopping a nuclear reactor from going off, but the reality is far more nefarious. Payback was the leading superhero group prior to the Seven, and included Soldier Boy, Crimson Countess, Mindstorm, Swatto, who has to be a reference to Watto, the TNT Twins, and Black Noir. In fact, Black Noir would go on to become the leader of the Seven, a role which would later be taken over by Homelander. Black Noir gets a little bit of an origin story as well, where we see the injury he sustained which gave him burns, and what I also think gave him the inability to speak. The irony here is that the last conversation he had with Stan Edgar was all about how he no longer wanted to wear his mask, but now with the disfigurement, he reaches for it. Only by beating the shit out of Gunpowder does Butcher find out none other than Grace Mallory was the official in charge of the Nicaraguan mission which brought about Soldier Boy's death. In the 80s, the US government and Payback worked together to sell cocaine in order to finance the government's war against the Russian-backed Sandinistas. The whole mission was a failure, with Soldier Boy's dead body picked up by the Russians. We do know Soldier Boy is alive from the previews, and judging by the carnage he gets up to, I wonder if there's a whole Winter Soldier type thing going on here where Soldier Boy was revived and brainwashed by the Russians. Or this could totally be a ruse. We never really see what happened to Soldier Boy, and the person we get this info from is Soldier Boy's girlfriend, the Crimson Countess, who, by the way, is a washed-up superhero who performs for small, near-empty crowds at an amusement park. Although her hit song Chimps Don't Cry is a banger.
You know that chimps are physically incapable of crying.
The operation in Nicaragua, also known as Operation Charlie, is based off a real operation in South America in which the United States backed right-wing dictatorships. It's here we get our first look at young Stan Edgar in charge of managing the Payback team. He's hoping to prove that soups can be used in the military, something that even in the present day hasn't been approved. Now Huey investigates Red River, where he sees this boy named Teddy Stillwell, which was the name of Madeline Stillwell's infant son in season 1. 1. With his mother dead at the hands, or should I say eyes, of Homelander, it looks like this is where he ended up. It's by grabbing Red River's files that Huey learns not only about Victoria Newman's past, it looks as though she may have killed her parents or others as a child. Bonus points if he caught the Galgear ads in the back of the Vought Rifle Association, which was seen on VNN, or Gunpowder's Second Amendment Forever license plate. Butcher ends up viciously killing Gunpowder, but I also got the vibe that he wasn't in particular control of this power, almost as if this compound is making him more aggressive, kind of like what happens to dudes who take steroids, but let me know what you think in the comments below. The end of the second episode culminates in this unhinged speech in which Homelander talks about being controlled his whole life and that it's his turn to take control. This is the first time he's being real and genuine, which resonates with a lot of his followers. What was originally seen as something that would tank his ratings turns out to do the opposite. Now, episode 3 is pretty cool because it both starts and ends with Starlight's clenched fist, one when she was a small girl competing in Little Miss Hero pageants and one as an adult. In both instances, you have other people dictating her life. As a child, it was her mother, and now Homelander who drops the bombshell that he and Starlight are dating. This is all a vain attempt to gain his fame back while also psychologically torturing Starlight. He's even instrumental in bringing back the Deep into the Seven who notoriously sexually assaulted Starlight back in season 1. With Huey and Mother's Milk both back with the boys, you might have noticed the name of their base, Graywall and Company, named after the late Arvinder Graywall, the boys' production designer who died in 2020. Huey has his arm broken by Kimiko, so he'll have an excuse to call in sick and hopefully not raise Victoria Newman's suspicions that he's on to her. Speaking of Victoria, she knows where Ryan is being held, so that also means Stan Edgar does too, so the boys have him moved. This is where Butcher is incredibly cruel to Ryan, who has since looked up to him as a father figure. Ryan even made a cute stop-and-go Lego video which had Butcher's ex-wife's voice in it. For Ryan, this is incredibly hurtful, and for a moment he shows his red eyes as if he's going to retaliate. We saw what happened when Homelander was raised without a father figure. Maybe Butcher needs to learn to fulfill that role, not only for Ryan's good, but for himself. We'll also see Ryan drop his necklace of St. Christopher, a present given to him by Butcher at the end of season 2. The legend of St. Christopher tells the story of a man who helped a small child across a river only for it to be revealed that the child is Christ. So this is symbolic of Butcher turning away from being that person if Ryan is to be this Christ-like figure. Frenchie goes on a mission of his own when he finds out his good friend Sherry is on the run for stealing from the Russian mob, particularly a woman named Little Nina. In the comics, she is depicted as extremely short with an affinity for vibrators and is later killed when Butcher plants an explosive in one of them. This may tie into the action from one of the trailers which shows Kimiko using dildos as weapons. In an absolutely disgusting scene where the Deep has to eat his own octopus and friend named Timothy, Homelander compares his struggle to that of Martin Luther King. Hilarious considering he loved a white supremacist and hates any sort of marginalized group.
Captain Al-Qaeda, we're Americans.
But this all seems to be leading to Homelander becoming more and more powerful, narcissistic, and unruly. So it's all becoming a race against time for the boys to find a way to stop him once and for all. Butcher says he'll use Little Nina as their way into Russia. Maybe she'll have information about Soldier Boy's whereabouts. We do know that Butcher, Kimiko, and Frenchie will make it to wherever Soldier Boy has been hiding, by the looks of it in some sort of cryostasis. I'm really looking forward to when Soldier Boy is finally released and Homelander will truly have someone to rival him. Thanks a lot for watching, everyone. Be sure to like and subscribe and let me know your thoughts and theories for episodes 1 to 3. For more bad takes, you can always follow me on Twitter and Instagram at ThinkStoryYT. Until next time, remember...
You were gonna say vagina.